Good evening and welcome to the Community Preservation Committee meeting. And I think we have a quorum, but let's go around. If you just say your name and your appointee. John Cressley, good evening.
Well, I'm John Cressley, appointed by the Select Board.
Thank you so much. Burton
Flint, Select Board appointee.
Thank you. Charles.
Charles Phillips, Housing Authority appointee.
Thank you. Nancy Nelson.
Nancy Nelson, Historical Commission appointee.
Paul.
Paul Baum, Recreation Commission appointee.
Thank you so much. And I believe that creates a quorum. Diane Proctor, Select Board appointee. Thank you so much. And welcome Linda and Keith. And of course, welcome Elizabeth and Anne. Okay, now Elizabeth, take it away.
So I just quickly would like to introduce Ann Clifford. She is our new senior planner, taking over for Heather Gill. And if you don't mind, I'll give her just a couple of minutes or so to introduce herself to the committee.
Hi, I'm so happy to be with you all. I actually, in my previous job, it was this estate in Waltham, Stonehurst, the Robert Treat Payne Estate, and that's where the Community Preservation Act was signed into law back in the year 2000. So, and I've received many grants myself, and it's nice to be sort of on the other side of the process.
Yeah.
Well, and it is reading your resume and all that you've done. It is a joy to have you here.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm really honored, actually, to, as you know, to be a part of this. So thank you so much for hiring me.
And will we be able to find you at Heather's desk, Heather's old desk?
That's right.
All right.
Although
Great.
we're moving offices, I think, soon. So
Soon. So we need to create a third office somehow in the planning division. So all of us are, some of us are temporarily moving up to the second floor conference room. I'm moving to the building commissioner's office temporarily. We have another person temporarily down in NRC. So it'll be quite a turmoil for the next month or so.
Oh my.
So Anne, do we have your email address? Because I'm sure we'll be using it quite a bit. Do we have it?
I can make sure to send it to you. It's aclifford@concordma.gov.
Well, that makes sense.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And Anne is still coordinating phone connections and all sorts of things. So we need to be
Right.
give her
This is only day 5, so
Right.
Right. So bear with me.
space and time to work all this out. An introduction and overview really needs to begin everything. And Elizabeth, are you going to pull that up on your screen?
it's up to Anne. I can either do it, or if you'd like.
And whoever,
Let me try.
Okay.
You should try with us. It's easier.
Okay. Is that showing?
not quite yet.
Not yet.
Sorry.
That's okay.
No worries. So when you click on share screen, you should get a little pop-up, and you can click the image that's in, the one that's in blue is the one that will come up.
Oh, looks good. Something's
Oh, do
happening.
you see it?
And then the CPC PowerPoint for June info session is the one on which you wish to click.
There you go.
I'm sorry. I'm struggling with this.
That's okay.
Um,
Under community preservation, there's something called
Oh, you know what?
PowerPoint.
All right. Do you want me to try?
Yes, please. I
Diane,
can practice this at work.
do we
Paul-
have members of the public on? I see one gentleman.
Well, we have Keith, of course, and our beloved Linda. So I mean, and Keith as well. I mean, you know, we have very familiar people.
Okay.
So Elizabeth, why don't you just run this for us? I think you're running it, right? Elizabeth, you're the one that's got it, right?
Yes.
I can't do it. So you want to
No,
take it? Good.
no problem. So go
Okay.
right ahead.
No, you go ahead, because I can't move it, so you go ahead.
No,
How's that? Is that good?
yes,
Terrific.
beautiful.
Okay.
Well, the CPA in Concord is 1.5% out of the possible 3% surcharge on real estate property tax bills. And that was something that we voted in the original adoption of the CPC program. The first $100,000 of the taxable value is exempt. And persons with incomes less than 80% of the area median income are also exempt. And that area median income as of the last notification I had was about $130,000 a year. Persons with incomes, seniors with income less than 100% of the area median income are also exempt. And locally raised funds are matched on a percentage basis by funds in the State Community Preservation Fund. The CPC tax surcharge has grown, as you can see, over time, but not dramatically, from 191 from 120 in 2013 to $193 in 2021. We have funded 22% of our projects have been community housing projects, and you can see some of those as exemplified in this slide. 35% of our funding has supported historic preservation. And again, you see examples of that here. Open space has 17% of our money has gone to open space over time. And there are some lovely examples of that on this slide. And then recreation, about 24%, including the CCHS field renovations and the Doug White playing fields, which and the Doug White playing fields are particularly important to notice right now because those are going to be coming up for renovation in our very near future. The CPA state match over time, you can see that in the early years, we were covered 100%. And that has begun to decrease, 35% estimated for 2022. And Keith Bergman may know more, and Linda may know more about what the plans are for next year. But I was happy to see in Stuart Saganor's recent memo to all of us that there will be more than was originally anticipated. What that final percentage will be, we have a while to wait. And Anne, you may know, and Elizabeth, you may know the answer to that right now. Does either of you?
Not yet. Nope, we haven't heard.
Okay, thank you. I just know that the state kicked in more money than was originally anticipated, which is always for us good news.
Yeah.
The CPC application review process, you can see here the calendar, which will be printed on our website. And tonight marks the first of those beginnings. Are there any questions that people have? This is an experienced committee at this point who we've all worked together for at least a year, and in some cases 3 and 5 and more years. So
No.
thank you for doing that, Elizabeth, for running that. I don't believe we have any applicants here right now, unless Keith, are you coming as an applicant or are you here as an observer?
Oh, hi, it's Keith. I think that I'm certainly an observer, and depending upon how things go and some discussions, the housing trust may end up being an applicant, as housing trusts are in other communities, but we want to engage the Community Preservation Committee for a discussion on whether that'll be so or not. So, thanks.
Thank you so much. And for those who may not realize, Keith is a real pro on CPC. I mean, he's run CPC organizations not only in our state, but also in Rhode Island. He proved last year as a real expert and somebody who was able to guide our deliberations. So Keith, you're particularly welcome tonight. Are there other comments and questions? Linda, do you have any comments or questions?
Regarding your earlier question about the funds coming to CPC. Right now, I think towns across the Commonwealth are being asked to send, or at least let their legislatures know that they'd like to see some money transferred to the CPA fund. And I guess about $20 million is on the table, so it's not sure. But if it were to be transferred, the estimate is that it would bring the match up to 43%. But that's, yet to be determined by the legislature.
Thank you, Linda, for that, for the specificity of that contribution.
Okay.
Thank you so very much. The second item on our agenda is membership and officer elections. Burton Flint belovedly is back with us and is now been appointed by the select board. We've lost Peter, who has chosen not to continue his membership. He was on this for several seasons, but he has family obligations that have pulled him away. And we all know that therefore we're going to need one more representative from the select board because we usually have 4 representatives from the select board in any one given season. Elizabeth, did you have a chance to pull up the names of any green cards? I scooted you a note about that, but did you see any green cards representing people who would like to be on the CPC?
I have not seen any green cards from the select board's office, but I will, I'll send another email and ask.
Okay, that would be very helpful. I know they're still reorganizing that, so it may take them a while to figure that out. Paul.
Burton, my understanding is that the planning board has designated an appointee. Is that public?
Yes, Andrew Boardman.
Bordman. Okay. Thank you for that information. I will note it as we proceed.
And full disclosure, he's my son-in-law, so
Ah,
Oh,
not-
okay.
not to-
A former legal intern in
right.
my
So
judicial career.
Oh
so
my
we all have-
gosh.
We
So-
have connections.
We're not going to be accused of nepotism, are we, Paul?
Well, we'll see. We don't often disagree, but we don't agree all the time. We'll see.
Or John. So the next thing we do, and until we find a 4th person from the select board, the advice I've received in talking with various people is that the chair of the committee and the treasurer, but particularly the chair of the committee, should be somebody from the select board appointee group, because there's no possibility of a change in that appointment. And so I think we proceed with that assumption. Do I hear any nominations from the floor for the chair of this committee?
Point of order, can the past chair be renominated?
Can be if he accepts.
yes. I would nominate the current chair.
Is there a second to that?
I would second that.
Is there any discussion?
Is the past chair receptive to that nomination?
I talked with Heather and I talked with Nancy Nelson actually about this, and I am willing to do that for one more year if it helps to sustain the continuity of our work, Paul. I was hoping Peter was going to obviously do this, so it is a surprise. But the committee is terrific. It's now quite experienced, and I will count on everybody's wisdom and support to pull us through. It'll be a joint effort. Let us say that. So may I hear? And I guess we have to vote on that. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Because this is virtual, you have to take a roll call vote.
All right, John. I'm sorry, John Kressley,
Yes. Yes.
Burton.
Enthusiastic, yes.
I was going to have you do that. Charlie,
Aye.
Nancy,
I,
Paul.
Without hesitation, yes.
Oh, you guys are great. Okay. So
thank you, Diane.
Thank you. We now have a chair going forward. We need a treasurer, somebody to manage. Nancy Nelson has done this incredibly wonderfully over the last year. It's not an egregious responsibility, but it does mean kind of working with Anne to try to figure out funding issues and particularly to sign various documents when it comes to sending money from the CPC forward to various organizations. Nancy, can you say anything else about the role? Because I know she is inclined not to do this again.
I think what you said is correct. Usually it's not an egregious job because the documentation is usually correct. I would urge the committee, however, to think strongly about, I know Heather Gill said the committee has never paid any attention to budget line items upon which the grants were approved. But I would really urge the committee to think twice about that because $500,000 more or less without any budget overview or categories that might be appropriate within certain line items. I think the committee would be wise to really consider that policy again. And that's all I have to say.
Diane, I thought you mentioned that the treasurer should be a select board appointee. Is that?
No, the chair should
you
be, but the treasurer does not have to be, Paul.
And the vice chair can be?
Oh, the vice chair. Okay, we need a vice chair. I apologize, Paul. This is the first time I've ever done this. So, the learning curve continues to be impressive. I mean, like, so, let's see. Would anybody like to nominate someone to be the vice chair, Paul?
I'd like to reprise the last meeting when I nominated Bert Flint, but now he's a select board. Now he's on the committee for sure. I'd like to nominate Bert.
Thank you, Paul.
I would second that nomination. I believe I can do that. And given Elizabeth's guidance, let's go around. Do we hear another nomination for that position?
The nominee thing.
Okay, here.
That sounds good. Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, John? Can't hear you, hon. Or raise a hand or do something.
Yes, enthusiastically.
Hey,
Yeah.
Burton.
Me, do I get to vote for myself? Okay, I'll vote yes. Okay. All right, yes, please.
Charles?
You mute.
Yep. He's unmuting himself as we sit here. Do you know, we all just need a t-shirt that says, please unmute yourself.
That's so true.
Charles?
I think we need a t-shirt that says Team Normal.
Charles, aye. We're voting on Burton. Yes. Charles, do we
Me?
hear?
I
Okay.
said that for, I think.
Nancy?
I, with thanks.
And Paul?
Yes.
Terrific. Okay, Burton, congratulations. And I know I look forward to working with you, and you're just you're a superb colleague. So this is fantastic. And now we need somebody to take on the treasurer's role. And Nancy has made a very important point because her casual reference to $500,000 speaks directly actually to what a project with which we dealt and have dealt over the last 2 years. And that is specifically not to be veiled in any way. It's been the complexity of the Right Tavern application, which came about because we had to guide them in their first application to make their, to kind of back up and kind of start again with their application and then move on to the second year. And I think the specifics of this may not be unimportant as we go forward, and it brings a kind of public integrity to our work. And I know Nancy would be happy to shepherd anybody who does this job and give them some advice on how to pursue it. So do we hear a nomination for somebody to do the treasurer's job? Well, I would like to nominate Paul, actually. Do I hear a second for that nomination? Thank you,
I
Burton.
would second that. Yes, thanks.
Okay. Do we hear another nomination for that role? Well, then let's do a roll call vote. John?
Yes.
Burton,
Yes.
Charles,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Paul.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And I know Nancy will guide you in this and help you kind of figure out the ups and downs, as will Elizabeth and Anne. As
I will need it.
Anne figures out all of the details. So fantastic.
Thank you.
Preservation plan updates. I looked at the website and I may have missed something, Elizabeth, but the only update that I noticed was really in reference to item 4 on our agenda, which is to project accounts that need to be closed. The parish belfry painting project. Did I miss one? Because I looked pretty carefully and I didn't see one. Or did anyone else?
So this is your community preservation plan update.
If you have not read it,
No,
Gary Clayton did and helped to pen. I actually, I'm so monastic. I actually printed it out. It's
that's okay. Here.
It's a 100-page document.
Oh, my gosh.
And if you've not had a chance, what I would urge everyone to do is to read it very carefully. And at our next meeting, if you've not had a chance to do so,
Yeah.
please notice the very intelligent editings. Green is in the new actions that we've taken recently. Yellow is in actions that suggest that require our particular attention. And Gary Clayton was was among the people who was on the very first committee that put the CPC together. And he therefore sits in many ways in 2007 as the editor and the progenitor of this first version of the document.
So did you want to go through the document or do you want to postpone this to the next meeting?
I would rather postpone it, Elizabeth, and ask people to take the time. People may not have realized. Has everybody read it before we go forward? Nancy's read it. I've read it.
Read it, but
Read it.
I would second your feeling that we should take the time to really read all of it and see what may have changed.
Right.
Okay.
This is a document we update each year, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And is this on the CPC webpage?
Yes, it's on the CPC web page. And Burton, it's comprehensive and it's very helpful. And the highlightings prove, I think, particularly instructive.
Yeah.
And second reason, Nancy, I'd rather wait until we see who the select board appoints, so that person has a chance then, to do the reading and catch up in all of this, so that we come at these deliberations in August as a cohesive unit.
Yeah.
John.
Did Heather do the updates or what?
Yes.
Whose work will we be reviewing?
Heather did the updates before she left.
Right.
Consultation with Diane, probably.
Right. And I just want to say welcome Court Booth and Carlin Reed, who I think have just joined us. I think that's Court's iPad.
Hi, Carlin.
Court's oh, hello, Carlin. I see you. I would recognize that. I recognize those bluebirds with a certain jealousy anywhere. We never get bluebirds. And I think that's Court's, I believe that is his particular signature. So John, I think it's really instructive, and I think when we get when we're really a plenary group, that's when I think we should be, reviewing it and discussing it and kind of going over the highlights, if that's okay with everybody. Elizabeth, does that make sense to you?
That's fine.
Okay. And Anne, does that make sense with you to proceed that way? Does it? Okay.
Oh, you're muted, Anne.
But it also gives you a chance, and I'm sure you've already gone over it, but in case you have not had a chance to, it gives you a chance to peruse it in some detail. Paul.
I'll certainly do that.
Yeah, I'm wondering for the next informational section, the document we're talking about is a very instructive document. It sort of details for an applicant exactly how you do it, who you have to talk to, who you have to liaise with. That might be a good document to actually include in the next informational section in some digested form. Because it's sort of a roadmap.
It's a gorgeous roadmap. And I think a
Yeah.
distillation, last year I put together a distillation, and maybe this year we can do that, Paul, for our
That's-
August. For
That's
our,
what- That was that document you put together for all of us, sort of CPC 101.
right, CPC 101. So I will see, I will try to find that again, and we can update that and review it, and I'll have Ann and Elizabeth look at it and make sure it still makes sense to everybody, okay?
Yeah.
And Paul, that's, as always, is a terrific suggestion. Okay, review of project to be closed.
Diane,
Oh, yes, sorry, yes.
John
I
had, a-
wanted to ask, yeah, I wanted to ask Elizabeth, is it possible to get a printed copy?
you can have a printed copy of anything you want, Judge Kratzley.
All right, I will come by your office,
Okay,
or Ann's
We'll have it-
office.
we'll have it ready tomorrow morning.
Well, it'll be next week, but that's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah, you're on, wait, this is our international committee. I keep forgetting. People are all over the place. Now, John, you're no longer in Concord. You're on the Vineyard, right? Or on Nantucket?
You see the big black whale?
I do.
That's the sign of Nantucket.
I thought maybe you were there. Yeah. So we've had people from Paris and Hawaii. So we have traveled the world as we've met together. Oh wait, it was Spain and Hawaii.
We had that applicant call in from Panama last time.
That's
Oh, that's right.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right. We've had some wonderful international adventures while we have remained stable in our nice COVID protected environments. The parish belfry event, I think, has been completed. And therefore it's important, and the belfry repainting project has been completed. And so we need to approve the accounts to be closed on that project. If you had a chance to read over that, it's really instructive and thorough. And so do we need a vote for that, Elizabeth? Okay, so we need to vote to close out that account. So hearing such a proposal, let's see, John?
Oh, yeah, and I'm delighted that we never got sued about it.
Yeah,
And,
we sure
I
didn't.
vote yes.
And all of that has to do with church and state, which seems to be evaporating anyway, given the Supreme Court. Paul?
Yes, I approve.
Yeah, Burton?
Yes, was that account drawn down all the way then?
I believe so, yes.
Okay.
That was from my reading of it, yes. Yeah, thank you for the very good question. Charles
Yes.
and Nancy?
I vote aye, and I would like to say this is one of the projects that has come before CPC that was extremely well presented, very professionally documented, and I hope CPC will follow those same protocols going forward.
Thank you, Nancy. Not for that admonition, but for that advice. So,
Unless it was one of the better site visits we've ever done.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Terrifying.
I do have one procedural question, and I don't, the closure, the project completion checklist that goes with the closure and it goes in the file, actually has a place for the CPC chair to sign.
Okay,
And I see no reason why you wouldn't be consistent and have it be the treasurer signing it.
okay. So Paul, that's now you.
Where do I
Unless,
sign?
so we'll send you an email when we get all of these, because it requires the date that it was closed and who
Yep.
did the report and the date of the meeting. So Ann will fill that out and then just send you, Nancy usually comes in and actually signs things if we don't have like an electronic DocuSign ability yet.
Okay,
So Ann will send you an email when it's ready to be signed, and you just come into the planning office and it'll be on the back counter and everybody knows it's there and you can just walk in and sign.
okay, well, that accelerates my learning curve a little bit, Nancy. I'll be in touch offline with you.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
That's fantastic.
Okay.
The minutes of May 17th, 2022. Anybody have any emendations? Nancy?
Yes, I do. I love the way Heather takes minutes, and it's only 2 pages. But apparently I was at this meeting, and I would just add that my name be added to the attendees,
Yes.
because I did 2 things.
All right, that's very interesting. I didn't notice that. Yeah, and of course you were there. Thank you very much.
Well, I missed 1 or 2 recently.
Oh, well, that's all right. We all have real lives.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm going to turn to Paul, who's had some thoughts about under kind of the category of new business and things he'd like us to consider. But before we do, I see that Court is here. And Court, are you here to apply for CPC funding, potential CPC funding? He gave a presentation to the select board the other day about some trails. And I presume that may be why he's here, but hello, Court, are you there? Well, if he is, he stepped out for a cup of tea. So
Or something.
or something. So my suggestion, my sense is that he may be here to talk with us about some funding for some new trail opportunities, which he's been shepherding rather brilliantly, actually. So that's really rather exciting. Paul, you've spoken, you've written, and asked the CPC to think about a variety of things. Would you like to address some of those concerns that you've been about what you've been ruminating? Oh, Elizabeth.
Can I just jump in regarding your minutes?
Oh, yes.
Your minutes
Oh, yeah.
have a place to sign for the secretary, which is traditionally not a word that's used any longer for committees.
For a clerk.
You usually have a clerk. So I don't know if you want to have, and that's generally all the clerk does is sign minutes. So I don't know if you want to have your.
Is that your job as?
No, generally a vice chair and a clerk are separate positions.
I understand.
Sometimes you can have a clerk treasurer. Sometimes those are both the same person.
Well, that puts a lot of burden on Paul. I'd be happy to sign them, Elizabeth. If you or Ann just scoot me a note, I'll come by and sign them.
Okay.
It's a good brisk walk for me, and I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, so from now on, but Ann and I will actually check your charge to see.
I mean, I may not be able
Who you
to.
should be electing, whether it's chair, vice chair, treasurer, or chair, vice chair, clerk, or but for this iteration for these minutes, we'll change that to be the chair signature, and Ann will let you know when they're ready.
Okay, thanks. I've never signed them before, but I mean, in the absence of a, in fact, have they been signed before?
Heather signed them, I think.
Oh, Heather signed them.
Didn't she?
I'm looking at the minutes, the draft minutes, and it just has secretary and and
Interesting.
Well, since Heather has served as the recording secretary, maybe she signs them herself.
that would be highly unusual as well. So we'll look into this tomorrow and get it straightened out.
Do a deep dive.
Elizabeth, you keep bringing up these governance questions.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
No, it's excellent.
Paul?
Yeah, so this nothing new that you probably haven't heard before, but maybe just refresh those. I think some of them maybe in the updated CPC plan we might take care of, but I think the 2 general issues. One is I'll call outreach, and I think outreach in my mind has had two pieces. One is just general outreach about the CPC to the community. I'm a little, I don't know if I'm surprised or not surprised that there are more public people on this call, given this is an interesting program. There's interesting projects to be funded. There's lots of ideas. So maybe there's, I don't know how best to improve our outreach on the committee and its mission and the opportunities in general. The subset of that was outreach. I think we talked about some outreach in the context of individual applicants. Individual applicants that, some applications have particular community impact, perhaps. The Assabet Bluff being one of them. And I think we decided to put the burden in the application process by having the applicant describe an outreach process, if applicable. So I think the two aspects of outreach, and we can circle back at that. The other one is kind of related to that, and that's individual applicants. I think we have, at least, look, I've only been on the committee for a short period of time, but I think individuals in town have good ideas, and they have to talk with committee chairs and departments, in general, to liaise on that. But I think I'd like to encourage more individual applications as opposed to, the same applicants over and over again, because I think individuals have good ideas in their community, and maybe groups of informal groups. They don't have to be a formal NGO or a formal entity. So I think encouraging individual applicants about the program, which is part of outreach. So maybe this is all under the umbrella of outreach. How do we make it more available, more informative to the public and individuals? One of the solutions, I think we put it in the application process on the individual application outreach, but the general outreach is still sort of out there. So do we think we need to improve that? And if so, how do we do that? I mean, there may be a community newspaper coming soon.
That's what I was just going to say.
Exactly.
And maybe that's a good way of doing it, but or skywriting or smoke signals or.
What I can also suggest is that I know Anne is going to be meeting with our public information officer about getting training to do all the updates to the webpage for the different committees.
Oh.
And what I'd probably suggest is that she also, because I know Anne and I briefly talked about the CPC, and she's mentioned she had different ideas about specifically outreach, so that she can have a conversation with Aaron Stevens, the town's public information officer, about what type of outreach can happen between now and your September information session.
I believe it's August, but I
It's August 16th.
that's what I thought.
August, okay.
Um,
Oh, yeah.
One of the things I would hope is that in our agenda for the next meeting is that this be an item so that we can talk about it, because the Assabet River Bluff project was successful in part because there was a great deal eventually of neighborhood outreach and an opportunity to bring a coalition of points of view. And I mean, one of the things that became, I think, crystal clear to most of us on the CPC, and I hope anybody who disagrees with this would say so, was the value of listening, to the neighbors and to those impacted by and enriched by the kinds of work that the CPC is doing. And although that takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of effort, I think it proves, I think, invaluable in the end. Yeah, John?
I just wanted to say that Heather had always had an article. I know we don't think a lot about the quality of our current Concord Lincoln Journal, but she always did get an article in. I don't know if one ran for tonight, but certainly in the short run, we should encourage getting one for the August meeting.
They're not taking a lot of things like that, John, but we can certainly try.
Oh, I think we should try.
Yeah. I mean, for instance, someone tried to put in something for the upcoming candidates forum, and it really took a wood and a hammer to get that in.
Oh, wow.
So, and they're accepting no more letters to the editor.
Oh my gosh.
So,
We did get the Sister City sake fundraiser in. So I think it can be done.
yeah. It requires a kind of persistence.
Requires sake.
Yeah, and yes, good idea. Shall we make it and you'll learn more about the Concord Bridge, which is what we hope will be a vibrant local newspaper that's about to get off the ground in the fall, and that should provide all sorts of opportunities. Paul?
Yeah, I mean, there's some really interesting examples. You brought up the Assabet Bluff project. That started out on shaky grounds because there wasn't enough outreach.
That's right.
And it turned out, by virtue of the accelerated outreach, it became a success. I point to the Emerson Field project, where a year later, people were questioning what's going on there and why weren't abutters advised. And there was a meeting at the Recreation Commission where some people, abutting Emerson Field, took great exception to that project, and they know how that started. I think at the time Matt Johnson rolled his eyes and said, it was public process, but I think, is the burden on the individual, or can we help that? That's just another example. The last example, I think, the Assabet River Bridge, where that project is now having separate meetings, and there's outreach inviting having separate meetings, which is really important. That's programming that whole process and future applications for success. So I mean, there's all sorts of examples, good ones that got better, and ones that never got better. So, but I think there's a good model somewhere in there.
Thank you, Paul. I think it's really important, and the degree to which we can be a gentle nudge to make sure that this happens as projects move forward in the town, I think is a reasonable and good thing. Okay, Nancy.
I would just like to add that something I've noticed in looking at various committees recently, that the posting of minutes seems to be almost a universal problem. And that just means that the staff that tries to ensure that these things are done is really overburdened in this regard. I don't know if Elizabeth and probably Anne at some very soon time might agree with that, but even the select board, Pat's committee.
So I'm gonna butt in. I don't think there's a single board or committee that's supported by the planning division that is
probably true.
I mean, you have minutes posted all the way up to the ones you just approved.
Right.
So
you're the planning board, the planning committee has done a brilliant job. However, that's not been uniformly true. And I wear my League of Women Voters hat here just a little bit, because we've been a gnat in the ear of the government on this particular issue.
Interesting.
Because it's really, we can't, when people roll their eyes and say, well, why aren't people involved and why don't they know? The citizens have no idea how to know. I mean, if you don't put your ear to the ground and attend a lot of meetings, and thank heavens for virtual meetings right now, but when they were physical, it was even more challenging. I mean, you don't have any idea where to go or what to do. You don't have some idea that somebody's discussing something. Yeah. And somebody says, well, we've been doing it for 3 years. Well, how would we know you were doing it for 3 years?
Yeah.
Well, and I think that, and I think it really does, it requires a rather, this is just a very personal comment. And so I don't mean this, I'm certainly not judging anyone, but I just think the more that we can encourage that and the more that we can do that, I think the healthier is our relationship with our community.
I think I would just add that one of the things for one of the committees I serve on, the secretary of the committee, which is a volunteer person, is supposed to take the minutes. But by default, planning has had to pick that up in the past. And so it's a real dilemma, I think, but maybe the committee secretaries need to take minutes. I don't know. But that's one thing I'm trying to rectify, is try to get some of those minutes for that meeting, not planning. But anyway.
Burton, you were going to have a comment?
Well, it's just, I'm just thinking, this is a wonderful discussion, and I would add to Paul's point, one of the things that comes out through outreach is enthusiasm for and people believing that the CPC is a good thing that should be continued, because as we know, that's not a universally held opinion. And some people think that the budgeting, this is just town projects that should go through the
Yeah.
FinCom and select board process.
Right.
But what it's got me thinking about, because I'm somebody that Nancy, not just this week, I was going through and looking at all the most recently posted minutes by committees. I would agree, with the exception of those that are so well supported by the planning department. They're pretty far behind. And I also, I no longer bother to subscribe to the Concord Journal. How do I get information? And what have I seen? Where have I seen a groundswell of things? I can tell you, as being on the periphery of the Assabet Bus project, of course, you had 2 land trusts that they have their email lists and their neighborhood lists, and that happened through viral emails that went out, right?
Exactly right.
It's a modern thing. And then, as some of you know, the planning board had
No,
had
Bert, could you explain?
a bit of a controversial article this year, and the people who organized, who were not in favor of the article, which did not pass, organized really, really well. They had a website, they had a petition, which was, when you see those petitions, by the way, and it says we're almost there, what they're really doing is just asking for your email address, because what they can do is then encourage you to get, keep you abreast on issues. But there's also how were people finding out about that? It was through these social media sites like Nextdoor. I don't know if there's still like Yahoo groups for neighborhoods in town, but maybe as a committee, we should be thinking about, people aren't reading that paper, which is now about 4 or 5 pages thick. What they're doing is they're getting a lot of their information actively pushed to them through social media things, as opposed to having on their own initiative to go to the town website and keep abreast of these things.
Yeah,
People are so busy and they're so used to that. Maybe we can start thinking about ways we can do that.
That's gorgeous.
I agree with that, because another example is the Hildreth Corner situation.
Yes,
A
there you
good
go.
example. I'm outside that, but I know that there's a lot going on with
Big
that.
community, big
And
community.
I think what they've got signs up, can you even take a picture of whatever those square things are, and it takes you right to the website, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Very,
Yeah.
very, very kind of sophisticated social media presences out there. Anyway,
Well, it does suggest a real community. And of course, that's the first word in our charge, community. And so I think that, the more we're an integral part of our community in a vibrant way, I think the more effective we are. So, Paul, I thought I saw your hand up.
Well, I did. I was going to make a comment, but don't interpret it as cynical. But people in town get very interested when their tax dollars are being spent. Right. And we are spending their tax dollars. And they may not realize it because they just don't understand the whole process here. But, I'm half suggesting that, that may be a hook to get people interested. I don't want to create another revolution in Concord, but, it is a interesting point. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
When I had the opportunity to present to the in January, I think it was in January, it kind of gets very confusing recently in this COVID time period, but when we were presenting to the town in a kind of what I forget what they call these, when you, good heavens, when you kind of foreshadow or preview what's coming for the warrant review process. But there's a name for that. Linda help, Burton help.
You mean the public hearing where you go and you?
That's what it's
present?
called, a public hearing. Thank you. Yeah, but I'm in Proctor camp time. We have a 6-year-old granddaughter, and we are in intense Proctor camp for 2.5 weeks. My brain is really about going to the library and doing projects and walking around Walden Pond, and public hearing was just not in the vocabulary. Anyway, during those public hearings, we had a chance to remind people that this really is our town's money that is being spent, and tax money that's being spent, and therefore our responsibility to do so with care.
absolutely.
Okay, is there any other, and Paul, thank you for your diligence in reminding us of these principles, which are so important. Are there any other comments that anybody wishes to add? Hearing none, I would ask Linda before we leave, and Keith and Carlin and Court, whether you have any comments to add before we leave. Carlin?
Sure, I'll comment. Carlin Reed, 83 Wits End. Your discussion about minutes is fascinating. I still have to fall back on the legal concept of the function of the minutes is to provide the legal record for what happens at the committee. So the minutes are very important. And when you have a question of what really happened between minutes versus a video, video loses.
Whoa.
So the minutes are really, really important. And yet we all rely so much on those videos to say, no, they really said this. Well, that's not really how it works.
Isn't that interesting?
Is that for sure? That's
I'm pretty reliant on that. And that's why it's very important to make sure the minutes say what you say, but only what you want to say. I know that's how I deal with it in my committee meeting. And I'm not sure if all the other committee members know that, but yeah, the minutes are really important from the legal standpoint, as the Historic Districts Commission may find out. Thanks. That's it.
That's fantastic, Carlin. Thank you so much for wearing one of your many hats. Keith?
Yes, thanks very much. I wanted to just share, and the chair is aware that the Concord Municipal Affordable Housing Trust is convening a meeting. Actually, it's going to be tomorrow morning at 11 on Zoom, and we've invited all of the housing entities to come talk with us, not simply to preview what sorts of things they might be coming to ask the trust for funding in the coming year, but really to strategize about what the priority, what are the housing priorities for housing dollars, no matter where they come from, so that we can maybe strategize and try to prioritize how those limited funds ought to go, so that, and I'm not sure what might come of that, but just one theme that came out of the Housing Production Plan Steering Committee meeting a week or so ago was, from a housing standpoint, the realization that looks like the town of Concord is going to fall below 10% once the new census figure from 2020 comes out. It won't officially come out, we're told, until the spring of 2023. So it's a year from now, which is good news. But if the Junction Village project is not among the countable units in the subsidized housing inventory, which Liz Rust was indicating to us is possible. I don't want to put too much spin on it, but it's possible, likely. It's a very realistic outcome. So if that happens, and if we're below 10%, once we get a new denominator a year from now, the question that we asked was, all right, well, how many units might we be below? And the answer preliminarily is somewhere between 8 and maybe 20 units. And what popped out at me is, well, if that's the case, then for prioritizing housing dollars in the coming year, we might want to look at what investments can be made to produce, say, 20 units and get those countable, whether it's from adding money to projects that are already in the pipeline, whether it's cultivating something new by being proactive, but that the stakes are high, because if we do fall below 10%, we are open to an unfriendly 40B.
That's right.
And if you want to avoid that, well, then you need to produce units. You need to produce something. So anyway, so it seemed prudent to gather all of the housing entities together. I've invited the chairs also of the FinCom and CPC, as well as the members of all, the committees that send liaisons to our group, to just talk about it. Let's just see what's important. Let's see what we can do to in the coming year to address whatever the most urgent goals are for housing, and that people will understand why we're doing it, and that we're on a mission of some kind. So anyway, that's what I can't predict what's going to come out of the discussion, but we wanted to bring everyone together and have a discussion about it.
It's such an important idea, Keith, and I'm sorry I can't be there. Burton, are you at all free tomorrow morning at 11 to be there?
No, I am sorry that the division of the company I work for is being sold in 7 working days, and I am working nonstop.
Oh, good heavens, I bet you are. Well, Nancy, are you going to be there?
I was going to ask about a Zoom link, actually.
Okay,
Is that on minutes and agendas?
Yeah, yes, it is. It's posted there, and you'll also find all of our minutes except for our most recent set, which we will vote on tomorrow.
and Keith,
Yeah, I think I can go to that.
thank you, Nancy, or anybody else on this call, I hope who are available, I hope they can. Keith, that's going to be, I think I wrote and asked, it's going to be recorded, right? Wait,
Yes, it will be, but I'm learning it's not foolproof because there's no video of our last meeting. So I had, despite the fact that it was recorded on Zoom, that but be that we will do our best. We're pressing the record button and hope that the cloud takes care of the rest.
thank you so much. Well, I think this is going to be an
I'm attending, so.
Oh, thank you, Charles. Obviously, I mean, you're marvelous this way.
Right.
Keith, I don't want to press you, but I'm going to try to state it in a slightly more direct way. The Junction Village project is in peril?
Information has not been shared about the specifics, but I think that timing, it's my understanding timing is a factor, and certainly money is a factor. And I've asked to find out how much money do you need, and what the circumstances are. So more information about that would be helpful, and I think is forthcoming.
Thank you very much. When you know, Keith, if you could keep me, and then I can pass it on informed, it would be very helpful in our deliberations and in our considerations. Court, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I can be very brief. If when you asked me to unmute, I was supposed to do so immediately, I probably was out of the room, so I apologize. I want to pick up on the outreach piece because I think it's so critical for CPC and every public body. And the little I've learned is we will never be satisfied. We will always find this an uphill battle. And yet we've got to do our best. It strikes me there's 3 outcomes we all seek with these public bodies. One is people have to know about us if we're to be legitimate.
Right.
2, we want people to participate, and you certainly do. And 3, the cynic in me, forgive me, says we also need to be able to defend ourselves against the perennial charge that people were not informed. And we have to be able to diplomatically say, well, gee whiz, there were 24 meetings. And that's always a delicate thing to remind people because, typically deadlines approach and then people surface. And I'll finish with an idea that I think Keith has started here, and that is CPC might do well, just thinking out loud here, might do well to not try to seek out every single potential eligible organization to inspire them to cook up a project, but instead to work through some of the established groups, for example, the Historical Collaborative, so that you could tap into a network of existing organizations and tap into their communication network. And it might be a real efficiency move on CPC's part to tap into some of these collaboratives.
Of course,
Thank you very much, all.
that's extremely good advice. And I was so pleased at the select board meeting not to have to raise my hand and say, gee, well, think about applying for CPC funding when you were talking about the trail. And I was so glad when you did. And I think I sent you an email immediately saying, go Court.
Yeah.
Not that I can guarantee that the funding will be forthcoming.
Oh, by no means. No, I understand.
But it just seems such an automatic.
Well, we're probably a year out on that one, so I'm not here with anything immediate in mind, but
Okay.
that's been a long-term undertaking. Thank you.
But an impressive one, I have to say. Linda, do you have anything you'd like to add to our discourse before we adjourn?
No, I think some very good ideas have been generated, and some of these have been talked about by a number of us in the committee. So I think the ideas have come forward, which is great.
Thank you so much. Okay, may I hear a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Thank you, Nancy. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Burton. Paul,
Yes.
Burton,
Yes.
Charles,
Yes.
Nancy,
Aye.
I, and who am I? Oh, and John, there you are. You moved. On these screens.
Court moved me a little bit.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And I do too. Thank you all. Have a wonderful June and July, and we'll see you all on August 16th. Okay.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.